of creativity because the permutations and combinations are virtually boundless. So that's why I think of heaven as endless creative activity without frustration to the glory of God. I just like that idea. And I think it's going to be that we're going to be doing things, but we will be pleasing Him and shaping things and accomplish and learning things and growing and moving. But all these things, and this is the point, will be Christocentric, theocentric. It'll all be ultimately based
on... The new heaven and new earth, it implies that things we experience are going to be re-experienced in some form.
Yes, yes. There's definitely a connection. There is a continuity between this life and the next. And that, yes.
How do you relate the flat forehead going around, oh, I missed this opportunity, why didn't I do that? That could be a version of hell.
That could be a version of hell?
Yeah. You know, with regrets and...
Oh, yeah. I believe, and I can't prove this, but I think at the Bema, the judgment seat of Christ, there will be great pain and then the wiping away of tears. We cannot abide the presence of God as we now are. There is that in us. There is this thing that Paul calls the flesh in Romans 7 that needs to be purified. It needs to be purged. And there will be pain. And my suspicion is that, number one, we may see our sins for the first time as Jesus saw them, which is an interesting thought. And number two, we may have an encounter with the sin of unused potential. And whatever that is, I think there will be regret. But I think then it says He will wipe away every tear from their eye. So how can it be? I do not believe that the pains of the past or the mistakes of the past can somehow blackmail the joy of heaven. I don't think that they can do that. And I don't think the mistakes we make and others do to us can do that. But ultimately, the joy of heaven will not be contingent on whether a person treated us well or whether we treated people well. But rather, it'll be dependent upon His own glory. But we will see that still we are called in this life to do our work with excellence. Our work is not in vain, to do it with skill and with endeavor in such a way that will be pleasing to Him. Paul's ambition, what was it again? I've taught you this many times. I make it my ambition, therefore, to be what? Pleasing to Him. That fundamental ambition, that fundamental aspiration unifies the heart. Purity of heart is to will one thing, Kierkegaard put it. And he's right. I think it's to will one thing above all else. And this is the one thing most needful. It's the pearl of great price. It's the treasure hidden in the field. It's this one thing, this clarity of thought and heart. And can I manifest that one thing in all activity? Remember that great phrase, teach me, my God and King, in all things Thee to see, and what I do in anything to do it as for Thee. That concept. Let me just go on a little bit because I haven't really entered into my teaching yet. All this was extra stuff. This was all prologue. I'm sorry. C.S. Lewis put it well when he said, "Love is something more stern and splendid than mere kindness." I want you to hear that again. Love, God's love, is something more stern and splendid than mere kindness. He goes on to say, what's that?
It's not mushy sentimentality.
Not mushy sentimentality, syrupy, although I fear that much of our thinking about it is. He goes on to say, we want not so much a father in heaven as a grandfather in heaven. A senile benevolence. I love that image. A senile benevolence who, as they say, like to see young people enjoying themselves, and whose plan for the universe was simply that it might be truly said at the end of each day a good time was had by all. That's the kind of God that people really want to have, but that is not the God who is. The God who is, all His attributes mesh together. You must be very, very wary of singling out certain attributes for focus and eliminating other attributes. This is one of the crimes of our time, and it's part of what's happening here in the church. We have a tendency to focus on certain attributes that we like. What are those? What are the ones that we particularly... Forgiveness. What do we think about? The grace, mercy of God. What else? The love of God, the kindness. Yeah, all those kinds. Yeah, and in other words, we think about the attributes of God, that He is, in fact, a God who is the lover of your souls. He's merciful, He's gracious, He's kind, His benevolence. But and it would be great to do a sermon series on that, but imagine a sermon series on the fear of God, the wrath of God, the holiness of God, and the judgment of God. That would go over real well. You see the point? Why is that? Are those less ultimate? God's love is a holy love. And we connect all those things together. It's a severe mercy. Everything He does then, He does in a way that we may not understand, just as you cannot help a 2-year-old understand why you have to hold her down so that the doctor can give her an injection so that she will be made better. You just cannot you cannot explain that. Why are you letting him do this, Daddy? We have no real grasp of that. But yet we understand, the Scriptures teach us, that we will look back and recognize that He does all things well, and that all of His attributes are equally ultimate, and they all mesh together in a greater whole. So, yes?
The other thing, Freud was right and wrong, is that he said religion is a projection, and there is no God. But what we do is we take our own experience with our own fathers, and we project that onto how we interact with God if we're not careful.
And that's where Freud was right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. If we're not careful, we'll do that. And then we will have that kind of either harsh or conditional kind of a God and so forth. And then people will err the opposite extreme, desperate to get some kind of solution to that pain, and then they'll minimize those other things that were really true of God, but that were distorted.
The shack.
The shack is, yeah, an example of that. Yeah, you just had to say it, didn't you? Yeah.
Hasn't the church, in a way, failed by only focusing on those positive attributes of God that we like to see?
Yeah.
And we ignore the fact that we have a just God?
Yes. I think it's made us trivial, sentimental, reduced God down to manageable human proportions, and failed to see the holiness and transcendence of God. I also see in certain writings an image almost as if God were only immanent and not transcendent. I see nothing. When I think of heaven, for example, heaven, yes, there's going to be the closeness and the intimacy, but let me tell you, there's going to be a terrible fear of God and a worship and a wonder. Who will not fear Him and honor His name? Read Revelation, and you'll see that He is both near and far. He's both transcendent and He's immanent. And so this idea of seeing Him, He transcends those boundaries. Let me just summarize, just a thing popped in my mind just for a second here. And just, when I think of biblical metaphors about us in relation to God, on the one extreme, we are just part of the created order, are we not? That all things that God has made are not Him. They're part of a created order, and on that level, we're just part of the creation. The next level, we might say, the next metaphor is that we're like clay that the potter molds and works with. At least now he's specifying us, but we're not alive. The next image we could say is the image of perhaps a vine, and branches on a vine. The next image might be that of a sheep, which is not a great honor because sheep are dumb. They need to be protected. They can't feed themselves properly. Feed all that. But at least look what we've done. We've gone at least from mineral to vegetable to animal. So we're working our way up, aren't we? So we're sheep. We're still not humans yet, but we're sheep, and they're endearing, but they're dumb. The next level up is that we become slaves. But now at least we're human. The next metaphor is that we are children. Another level up, we are in fact friends. Another level, we're lovers. He's the sacred romancer of your soul. You have to be very careful here. If you reach the point where we're lovers and ignore the others, you've made a mistake. All 8 of those are equally ultimate. And there's a great mystery in how that is. He's both near and far. And so we do well to worship Him. But we also love Him, and we enjoy His presence and His immediacy, and it's a both-and experience.
Good but not safe.
Yes, He's good, but He's not safe. That's the idea. And again, that Aslan, yeah. The fact that he is good, but he's not safe. You cannot reduce him to manageable proportions.
Thank you very much, Ken, for blessing us this morning, as always.